Hi, it's Patricia Coughlin, and I wanted to talk to you today about the whole topic of the transference neurosis and whether this should be encouraged or avoided. So, first of all, what is a transference neurosis? Well, it's a phenomenon in which the patient transfers all of their infantile feelings, wishes, fantasies, impulses onto the person of the therapist, who becomes, in fact, the most important person in the patient's life. Now, this was first observed by Freud and Brewer 100 years ago. A female patient fell in love with Brewer, and this freaked him out. And so he abandoned the whole proposition, whereas Freud thought, well, maybe this is really useful if the patient transfers or projects all of their conflicts onto the person of the therapist. Maybe we could somehow work it through there. Now, by the end of Freud's career in analysis, terminable and interminable, he had very serious questions about this. He said that using free association was a good way for him to study unconscious processes, but he said it wasn't a very effective treatment model, and he was going to leave that to the subsequent generations to innovate so that we could develop more effective treatment methods based on our understanding of unconscious processes. Now, Davin is certainly one of the people who did that, and his innovations are largely around identifying and intensifying conflictual feelings in the transference as soon as they appear. So rather than waiting, as was the tradition, for transference feelings to flower into this full-blown neurosis, Davin found that by dealing with transference feelings and resistances against them from the start, two very important things happened. One is that by encouraging the patient to face and experience and express all of their complex mixed feelings toward the therapist, there was a very rapid and wide opening into the unconscious, so that the person or persons the therapist had come to represent come into full view. And there's a very direct and rapid connection between the transference and the past, which then comes alive in the room, and the past can be resolved in the present. The other reason that Davin felt this was extremely important was, in fact, to prevent the development of a transference neurosis, which is often impossible to dig out of or to disentangle. And, when I was looking over all the comments from, my YouTube channel, the number one concern I'm getting, not just from therapists, but also clearly from people who have been in therapy, is that they, in fact, developed this transference neurosis. They felt that they had fallen in love with their therapist. And then when they told the therapist either freaked out and precipitously ended treatment. Interestingly enough, that was most common in male therapists, or the female therapists, who would tend to say, don't worry about it, that's kind of normal, right? So in neither case are people taking up and addressing these feelings, fantasies, and impulses directly. So they're there. If they're not being faced, by definition, they are going to become a barrier to treatment. And many of the people writing into me again are harboring all of these feelings and fantasies and are afraid to tell their therapist because that might burst the balloon. So they've often been in therapy for 3 or 4 years. And again, there's this phenomenon where the person of the therapist has become the most important thing. And it's as if their very reason for coming to therapy has kind of vanished. So this is really something I think that should be avoided at all costs. People have their transferences, their ready-made tendencies, right, to be passive and to want an authority to take over or to be sort of coy and seductive. I mean, you're going to see both evidence of these feelings and also what Davenlu called a transference pattern of behavior, right? A certain interpersonal style or way of relating that is going to show up with the therapist. So the sooner that you identify these feelings, resistances, and conflicts and bring them out into the open, the better. It is going to accelerate and condense the process, and it is going to prevent a very thorny transference neurosis that is often impossible to actually resolve. So I hope this is helpful to you, and I welcome your comments and questions. Bye-bye.